Folks, and welcome back to Toby Talks. As always, I'm your host, Toby Hoy, and I'm excited that you're here with me today because we're going to dive into a topic that I believe is absolutely critical for every leader, every professional, and honestly, every person navigating the workplace from here on out. We're going to talk about human centered skills, those uniquely human capabilities that are becoming more valuable, not less, in our increasingly AI augmented world. So I know what some of you might be thinking. Another AI conversation, really? But just stay with me because this isn't about the tech. It's about you, the human. This is about the skills that make you irreplaceable, the capabilities that actually become more important as automation handles more and more of the routine work. So here's what we're covering today. We're going to explore the 7 key human centered skills that are rising in importance. We'll discuss why these skills matter more now than ever. And most importantly, I'll give you some practical ways to develop these capabilities starting this week. So whether you're leading a team, developing your career, or simply trying to stay relevant in a rapidly changing workplace, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. We'll start. So before we jump into specific skills, we need to understand the landscape that we're operating in. In the last year alone, we've seen generative AI tools become more commonplace in organizations everywhere. Your colleagues are using ChatGPT and others to draft emails. Your marketing team is generating content with AI assistance, and your developers are coding faster than ever before with AI pair programmers. And that is just the beginning. And here's the thing that's really fascinating, and it's also what most people miss. As AI takes over more and more of the repetitive, algorithmic, predictable work, the gap between humans and machines isn't closing, it's widening, but in a specific direction. Think about it this way. AI is exceptional at pattern recognition, data processing, and executing well-defined tasks. What it can't do, and this is critical, is navigate ambiguity. It can't build genuine trust. It can't exercise nuanced judgment in complex ethical situations or bring authentic creativity to novel problems. These all are fundamentally deeply human capabilities, and they're becoming the premium skills in the workplace. I talk to leaders every week, and here's what I'm seeing and hearing consistently is we need people who can think critically in gray areas. We need people who can lead through uncertainty. We need people that can collaborate across deep differences. The technical skills, yeah, they're still important, but they're just table stakes now. Your differentiator is your human skills. So let me be clear about what I mean by human-centered skills. These aren't soft skills, and that's a term I've never liked because it implies that they're somehow less important. These are core skills, essential skills, the skills that create real value in ways that machines simply can't replicate. And the data backs me up on this. Research from the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report shows that analytical thinking and creative thinking are at the top of the list of things that employers see as rising in importance. But right behind them are skills like empathy, leadership, and emotional intelligence. The future of work isn't human versus machine. The future of work is human plus machine. And the professionals who will thrive are the ones who lean into the skills that make us distinctly human. So we'll dive into these 7 skills that I've been referring to. We'll start with the one that I consider the meta skill, the skill that makes all the other skills possible. And that one is adaptive thinking and continuous learning. In today's world, the half-life of skills is shorter than ever. Technologies emerge, industries shift, and best practices evolve constantly. And the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn isn't just nice to have, it's survival. But here's what adaptive thinking really means. It's not just about taking courses or reading books, although those are still important. It's about developing a growth mindset that says, I don't know, and that's okay. I can figure this out. It's about being comfortable with being a beginner again and again and again. I've watched leaders struggle because they couldn't let go of what made them successful in the past. They became prisoners of their own expertise. Meanwhile, I've watched other leaders thrive, not because they knew more, but because they were better at learning faster. So, how do you develop this skill practically? The first is to adapt and adopt what I call the experiment mindset. Instead of needing to have all the answers, approach new challenges as experiments. Ask yourself, what can I test? What can I learn from trying something new? The second is to build deliberate learning into your routine. I'm not talking about passive consumption of information. I'm talking about active learning with reflection. So try this. Every Friday, spend 30 minutes reviewing what you learned that week, what worked, what didn't, and what could you do differently. And the third is to seek out discomfort. Take on a project that is slightly outside of your expertise. Join a conversation where you're not the expert. This is where growth happens. And the second skill is, well, let's talk about emotional intelligence. The ability to recognize, understand, and manage both your own emotions and the emotions of others. This skill has always been important, but now it is absolutely critical. So why, you might ask? As routine tasks are automated, more and more of our work involves navigating complex human dynamics, leading change, resolving conflicts, and building trust around diverse teams, motivating people through uncertainty. You can't outsource empathy to an algorithm. Think about it this way. Think about the last difficult conversation that you had with a colleague or a team member. The outcome of that conversation didn't depend on who had the better facts or the more tactical or logical argument. It depended on whether you could read the emotional undercurrents and respond with genuine empathy and create psychological safety for an honest dialogue. That is emotional intelligence in action. And here's something else that's critical. Empathy isn't just about being nice. It's about basic human understanding perspectives that are different from your own, about understanding them well enough to make better decisions, to solve complex problems, and lead effectively. So, how do you develop this? To start, you want to deal with self-awareness. You can't manage what you don't recognize. So pay attention to your own emotional triggers. When do you get defensive? When do you shut down? What patterns do you notice? The next is to practice active listening. And I mean actually listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk. Try this technique in your next one-on-one conversation. Commit to asking 3 questions before offering a solution or an opinion. And here's another powerful exercise. When someone frustrates you, instead of judging, get curious. Ask yourself, what might be going on here that is driving their behavior? What pressures might they be under that I just can't see? That shift from judgment to curiosity can be transformative. Skill number 3 is critical thinking and nuanced judgment. So, what do I mean by critical thinking and nuanced judgment? That's the ability to analyze information, to question assumptions, and to make sound decisions on complex situations. So, AI can give you data. It can even give you insights based on patterns, but it can't tell you which insights matter in your specific context. It can't weigh competing values. It can't exercise judgment when The right answer depends on factors that can't be quantified. So I'll give you an example from my own work. Recently, I was working with a leadership team that was trying to decide whether to or not to automate a customer service function, it's answering the phone. The data clearly showed that it would save them money and would improve response times. But critical thinking required asking some deeper questions. It required asking, what would the impact be on employee morale? What would this do to the customer experience? How would it align with our stated values about human connection? What are we trying to optimize for? Efficiency or relationship? The questions, those questions don't have algorithmic answers. They require deeply human judgment. So here's how to sharpen your critical thinking. The first is to practice what I call assumption hunting. Before making any important decision, write down 3 assumptions that you're making and then ask yourself, what if that assumption is wrong? The second is to seek out diverse perspectives actively, not just the people who agree with you, but people who see the world differently. This is uncomfortable, but it's where growth lives. And the third is to build in reflection time. Critical thinking requires space. In a world that rewards speed, the ability to slow down and think deeply is increasingly rare and valuable. So, one practice I recommend is before sending an important email or making some kind of significant decision, is to sleep on it. Let your subconscious work on it. You'll be amazed at what emerges. Skill number 4 is, and it's creativity. So let's talk about creativity and not the way that most people think about creativity. When I say creativity, I mean creative problem solving, not just talking about artistic creativity, although that's still valuable, but about the ability to approach problems from novel angles, to make unexpected connections, and to generate solutions that don't yet exist. This is fundamentally human. AI can remix existing patterns brilliantly, but it struggles with true novelty, the feeling and with seeing what could be rather than what has been. So, in today's landscape, as we face complex and unprecedented challenges, things like organizational transformation or social change, and yes, even climate change, we need people who can imagine and create new possibilities. So here's the thing about creativity. It's not necessarily a gift that you're either born with or without. It's a skill that you can develop. One of the most powerful techniques that I know is what I call constraint-based creativity. When facing a problem, instead of asking, how could we do this better? You can try, how could we do this with half the budget? Or how would we solve this if we couldn't use our current approach? Constraints force your brain out of familiar patterns and into new ones. Another technique is something called cross pollination of ideas. Take a problem that you're facing and ask, how would somebody from a completely different industry approach this? How would a chef solve this organizational challenge? Or how would a wildlife biologist approach this customer experience issue? These like kind of mental leaps, they create breakthroughs in thinking. And here's a daily practice that will help build your creative muscle. And I keep this what I call an idea inventory. Every day, just capture 3 ideas. They don't have to be good ideas, and they likely won't all be, but the practice of ideation builds the creative pathways in your brain. Remember that creativity isn't about waiting for inspiration. It's about building the conditions where inspiration can emerge. Skill number 5. We're about most of the way through. Skill number 5 is authentic communication. And I don't mean base communication. I mean authentic communication and storytelling. So, in an age where AI can generate perfectly grammatical, technically correct content, what makes human communication valuable? The answer is authenticity and vulnerability, the ability to connect emotionally through narrative. Think about the last presentation that really moved you. I guarantee it wasn't because of the beautiful slide deck or the impressive data. It's because the speaker told a story that resonated with you. They shared something real. They made you feel something. That's the power of authentic communication. And it's becoming more valuable precisely because it's so rare. I see leaders who are brilliant technically, but they struggle to inspire their teams because they communicate in abstractions and bullet points. Meanwhile, we see other leaders, sometimes less technically accomplished, but they build extraordinary followings because they can articulate a vision. They can tell compelling stories and communicate in ways that touch both the head and the heart. So here's how to help develop this skill. The first is to embrace vulnerability. Now, I know this is risky, especially in a professional setting, but people connect with humans, not with corporate personas. So share your struggles, your successes, not and talk about what you're learning, not just what you already know. The second is to master the art of storytelling. Every data point is more memorable and persuasive when it's shaped into a narrative. So instead of saying our customer satisfaction scores improved by 23% last quarter, try telling a story about a specific customer where their experience changed and how. The third is to practice clarity. Simple, clear communication is increasingly rare and valuable. Can you explain your idea to somebody outside of your field? If not, you don't understand it well enough yet. So here's a weekly practice. Record yourself explaining something important about your work. And then, as you're talking to a friend over coffee, and listen back to it. Are you authentic? Are you clear? Are you compelling? That feedback loop can be invaluable. So, number 6, let's talk about collaboration. And I don't just mean working in teams. I'm talking about collaborative intelligence, the ability to work effectively across differences and build genuine relationships and to create value through connection. So here's what's changed. Work used to happen in relatively stable, homogenous teams. Now you're constantly collaborating with people across different disciplines, different cultures, different time zones, and across organizational boundaries. Your ability to build trust quickly and to navigate differences respectively and co create with diverse people is critical. AI can't do this for you. Now, sure, there are collaboration tools out there to help coordinate work, but the actual work of building trust and resolving conflicts and aligning around a shared purpose, that is deeply, deeply human. I've observed that the most successful professionals in today's world aren't the most brilliant individuals. They're the best collaborators, the folks who can bring out the best in others. They can bridge divides and create environments that foster diverse perspectives and strengthen the alignment for the work. So, how do you develop collaborative intelligence? The first is to invest in relationship building, not traditionally, not transactionally, but genuinely. Get to know your colleagues as whole people. What motivates them? What challenges are they facing? What are they passionate about? This isn't necessarily small talk. This is the foundation of trust. The second practice is what I like to call generous collaboration. Approach every collaborative interaction asking, how can I help this person be successful? Not what can I get out of this person? That shift in mindset, it transforms relationships. And the third is to develop your conflict resolution skills. Differences are inevitable. The question is whether you can navigate them constructively. When conflict arises, get curious rather than defensive. Focus on interests, not positions. Look for win win solutions. Here's a practice that will transform your collaboration. After a compelling project with others, have an authentic start, stop, continue conversation. Ask what went wrong? What should we start doing that we're not doing? What should we stop doing that isn't working? And what can we start different next time that'll make us even better, right? That process, that conversation can help build a culture of continuous improvement in relationships. And the last skill, finally, we get to the end. We're talking about ethical reasoning and values-based leadership. So as AI becomes more and more powerful, we face questions that previous generations never had to answer. We ask questions like, how do we use these tools responsibly? How do we balance efficiency with privacy? And how do we ensure that automation benefits everybody, not just some? These are fundamentally ethical questions that require human judgment that's grounded in values. But ethical reasoning isn't just about big philosophical questions. It shows up in everyday decisions. Do you take credit for your team's work? Do you speak up when you see something wrong? Do you prioritize short-term gains over long-term trust? In my work with organizations, I'm seeing a hunger for authentic, values-based leadership. People want to work for leaders who stand for something beyond just getting results. They want to know their work matters and that the organization operates with integrity. So this is your opportunity. In a world that often feels transactional and disconnected, leading from a place with clear values is a competitive advantage. So how do you develop ethical reasoning? First is to get clear on your own values. What principles guide your decisions? What do you stand for? Write those down and then review them regularly. The second is to practice ethical deliberation. When facing a decision with some kind of ethical dimension to it, don't just go with your gut. Ask, who might this impact? What are my obligations to each stakeholder? And what would I want if I were in their position? The third is to create forums for an ethical dialogue. Some of the most powerful leadership conversations I've ever facilitated have occurred when teams were wrestling with difficult questions that didn't have easy answers. And here's a here's a daily practice. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I live according to my values today? This is not judgmental. This is just base reflection. And it builds on what I call your emotional and ethical muscle memory. So remember, ethical leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional, reflective, and the willingness to do the right thing even when it's hard. So we've covered a lot of ground today. So let's bring this home with something practical that you can do immediately. It brings us to my challenge for you this week is to don't try to develop all of these skills at once. That's just a recipe for overwhelm and inaction. Instead, I want you to pick one of these core skills that we've talked about, the one that resonates the most with you where you are right now. Maybe it's emotional intelligence because you're struggling with team dynamics. Maybe it's creative problem solving because you're facing a challenge that requires some innovative thinking. Or maybe it's adaptive learning because your industry is shifting underneath your feet. Choose one and then commit to one specific practice related to that skill for the next 30 days. Just one, make it simple enough that you'll actually do it. As an example, if you're working on emotional intelligence, commit to asking 3 questions before offering solutions in every conversation. If you're working on developing adaptive learning, dedicate 30 minutes every Friday for reflection on what you've learned in the past week. And if you're working on building communication skills, record yourself explaining one key concept each week and then review it. Small, consistent practice is how skills develop, not grandiose gestures, not intensive workshops. Daily practice is what works. So here's what I want you to do, and what I want you to understand at a deeper level. These human centered skills aren't just about staying relevant in the workplace, although they'll certainly help with that. These skills will make you more effective, but they'll also make you more fulfilled. They connect you more deeply to your work and to the people around you. They help you build a life of meaning and impact. Because here's the real truth. As AI handles more and more of the routine work, we're being freed up to do the work that matters most, the deeply human work of creating and connecting and thinking and empowering and wisdom. This isn't something to fear. This is an invitation to step more fully into your own humanity. The professionals who thrive this year and beyond are the ones who are not going to try to compete with the machines at what machines do best. They're the ones who are going to double down on what makes us incredibly and irreplaceably human. So I want to leave you with this question. What are you going to work on this week to develop your human edge? Think about that and then just do it. As always, thanks for joining me today. And if you found this information valuable, please share it with a colleague. If it resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on social media or share your reflections and commitments in the comments down below. And let's continue the conversation. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep growing.